but he just barely picks up the victory. He uses the tights, he uses ropes, he uses basic heel tactics and stuff that, you never thought you'd see in a nowadays kind of heel. So he's actually picking up these victories with heel tactics, which makes a lot of sense. And for Dolph Ziggler, it works. It works for him. So build up to WrestleMania, of course. Daniel Bryan is basically saying, I may not be going for the world title, but you are representing that championship poorly. I need to take it off of you at WrestleMania. And Dolph Ziggler says, bring it on. We get the match, Daniel Bryan versus Dolph Ziggler at WrestleMania 31, and it is indeed the first match on the card. Dolph Ziggler, of course, is just going to have this new look. He's not going to have that bleach, blondish hair. He's going to have a little bit more darker. I wouldn't say black, and I wouldn't say that weird brownish color that he had. Just a little bit more interesting, a little more darker than what you would expect. And his theme music is not, I'm here to show the world. I'm here to, something a little more like heavy metal, a little more something that might fit him just a little bit, something more interesting. Matchup at WrestleMania is great. We even get to see Dolph Ziggler, hit a super kick on Daniel Bryan, hit the zigzag, but Daniel Bryan is still finding a way to be resilient. But finally, a running knee by Daniel Bryan. 1, 2, 3. Dolph Ziggler is dethroned, and Daniel Bryan wins the IC title. Now, I am taking into effect that Daniel Bryan does get injured during this, so here's basically what we're going to do. The following night, Daniel Bryan versus Dolph Ziggler happens, and Dolph Ziggler steals the championship back. He uses, tights, he uses ropes, he uses some kind of shenanigans to win. I would even go with, maybe a thumb to the eye and then the zigzag for the 1, 2, 3. Dolph Ziggler is once again the Intercontinental Champion. So we're building up, again, to the rematch between Daniel Bryan and Dolph Ziggler at the Extreme Rules event. Unfortunately, that is also when Daniel Bryan is basically announced that he's out with injuries. So who do we have to basically fill his spot? Bad News Barrett. Bad News Barrett, he is one of those guys who definitely deserves to have some sort of face run. And I think that having him do a face run and having these great matches with Dolph Ziggler would really help him up in the long run. So we have that, and hope to God that this works out well to where management says, oh wow, Bad News Barrett's doing amazing. He's just doing awesome right now. So he will eventually become the King of the Ring, but he's not going to go, but anything to save us from that god-awful, rivalry with R-Truth was pointless. So we have back-to-back events where Dolph Ziggler and Bad News Barrett face off against each other. And unfortunately for a lot of us, Dolph Ziggler comes out victorious, and he beats, Barrett with, somewhat of heel shenanigans, but also it is Extreme Rules, so it's basically like no disqualification. So it's like, he beats him clean. Then the next night, the next event at Payback, he just barely beats Barrett, again using heel tactics. You can even have a little bit of interference where the authority basically says, hey, we support you, but you also want to be your own man. It's cool. So the next event would be the Elimination Chamber event, in which we would see the Intercontinental Championship indeed defended in that matchup for the first time. So we have Dolph Ziggler, we have Sheamus, we have Ryback, we have, I'm trying to remember the order, it was Rusev, we have Mark Henry, and then we have Eric Rowan. Just makes sense to have two of the guys that Dolph Ziggler basically screwed just put in there. It just seems to work. So matchup happens, and Ryback is just about to hit the shell shock on Dolph Ziggler for the win, but Dolph Ziggler just rakes the eyes of Ryback. Bam! Super kick. 1, 2, 3. Dolph Ziggler retains the title and wins his first Elimination Chamber matchup. It just makes the most sense, in all honesty. Just keep Dolph Ziggler having this momentum, have him just continue this build. It works out very well. So we move on to the Money in the Bank event. I would have Dolph Ziggler face off against Mark Henry just for this matchup because, again, Mark Henry believes that, he's just not representing the title at all. Just have like a brief mini feud here. Mark Henry comes up short. Dolph Ziggler finds a way to, defy the odds and the mass difference between the two of them, and Dolph Ziggler hits a huge zigzag and even locks a sleeper hold, knocking the world's strongest man out. So Dolph Ziggler's just got this bigger chip on his shoulder, and he's just having this massive head of just saying, like, hey, I beat so many people. I even beat the world's strongest man. I made him pass out. There is nobody that is going to beat me. There's nobody who is going to stop me. We move into Battleground. Who is going to be the next opponent for Dolph Ziggler? Why, my friends, that would be Rusev. Now, I know what you're thinking. Obviously, this is going off of what happened in real life, but here's the difference, though. The reason why they did that was because they wanted to do some weird little love triangle deal between Rusev and Lana and Dolph Ziggler. We're not going to have that happen. Instead, what we're going to do is that we're basically going to involve a storyline with Rusev. He's let down Lana so many times, so Lana has left him. Rusev is basically just a shell of his former self, and he's just not feeling this, he can't get focused. He's just not himself unless Lana is with him. And the fans really notice that. I mean, they obviously see that, Rusev just really cares for Lana. He really wants to do it. So we're slowly trying to develop a little bit of a pity babyface turn, but at the same time, we're doing it for a good reason. So here's what happened. Rusev calls out Lana. Lana comes out, and she is still obviously not happy with him. Rusev says, look, I know that I've said so many things in the past that I immediately regret. But please, let me prove to you that I am somebody who can be better, somebody who can definitely be worthy of you. Please, just give me one chance. Let me prove that by winning the Intercontinental Championship. So it seems like, we're using the IC title as just this kind of interesting way of proving their love, I guess. But also we're trying to prove that, hey, I'm willing to fight for you, and I'm willing to prove that by winning the Intercontinental Championship. We're trying to keep some prestige to it, because now it's a goal there. So we're making that the main goal, is that Rusev wants the Intercontinental Championship. So we have Rusev versus Dolph Ziggler at the Battleground event, and Rusev tries very hard, but unfortunately gets beaten by Dolph Ziggler almost easily, actually, because he's so distracted by Lana. He's still not the same Rusev that he was. And at the same time, when Lana's at ringside, she just sees, Rusev, and just sees like the anguish that he's going through. And after that final super kick, 1, 2, 3, Lana realizes how much she means to him. So Dolph Ziggler leaves the ring, and he's celebrating. Lana comes into the ring, and she slowly helps up Rusev. And this is just kind of the first step for them just to rekindle their relationship, basically. They're building each other up. Dolph Ziggler, though, he's got some things to say, and one of them being that, hey, I don't know why you're wasting so much of your time on a Russian streetwalker like they had, I think The Rock basically called him that. So this is one thing where, Lana is insulted, and Rusev just starts losing. He gets that fire in his eyes again, where he just wants to kill. He wants to destroy. Dolph Ziggler continues to push and push and push, because he knows that this is what's going to basically put Rusev over the edge. And the Authority makes the matchup. They make the matchup between Dolph Ziggler and Rusev at SummerSlam. This time Rusev is more focused, but he's also very volatile. He's very, very angry. He is not at all pleased. So before the matchup even starts, Rusev just goes on the offensive. He just beats down Dolph Ziggler. Just goes boom, bang, 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 bang. He's just beating down on Dolph Ziggler's head. Just beating him down and just beating him down. Just going crazy, hitting slams, hitting everything. Rusev goes for the accolade, and he locks it in. He locks it in tight. Dolph Ziggler's tapping out, and it seems like we have a new Intercontinental Champion, but Rusev refuses to let go. He's just pulling and just tugging and just tearing. He just wants to rip off Dolph Ziggler's head, and the referee just reverses the decision. He says, no. Dolph Ziggler retains, and he wins by disqualification. So everybody knows that tonight it was not about winning the IC title. Tonight was all about redemption, showing that Rusev could be that monster. He could be that behemoth of a man. He just could be that guy who was the most dominant United States champion that they've seen in a long time. So we see Dolph Ziggler basically come out. He says, hey, I may have gotten beaten down, but I've beaten Rusev twice, so there's no reason for me to fight him anymore. And Rusev says, hey, I want you one more time in a rematch. And Dolph Ziggler basically like, are you kidding me? No. It's kind of one of those deals where he's basically saying, he doesn't want to fight him because he's beaten him 2 times, but he really doesn't want to because he knows that Rusev is fully focused. And Rusev says, I'll tell you what, I will make you a deal. I beat you at Night of Champions. I become the new Intercontinental Champion. But if you beat me, I will leave the country. I will end my wrestling career. I will go back to, Russia, and I will never wrestle again, and you will never see me again. Okay, that's a poor Russian accent, a poor Rusev accent. Just basically him saying, I won't wrestle again. I will never wrestle again. And Dolph Ziggler says, I'll tell you what, you put Lana on the line as well, and you got a deal. Rusev looks at Lana. Lana looks back. She's got that scorching look in her eyes, and she nods because she believes that Rusev can beat Dolph Ziggler one more time. So Rusev versus Dolph Ziggler happens at the Night of Champions event, in which Rusev picks up the victory. He comes so close to losing, to having his career ended, but Rusev finds a way to beat Dolph Ziggler, use the accolade, and make Dolph Ziggler tap out, and he becomes the new Intercontinental Champion. Rusev has done it. He's finally proven himself. He's proven to Lana that he is indeed still the man that she loves. They share a kiss, and after the match is over, he makes the moment not only about him but also about her by getting down on one knee and proposing to Lana, because that would be the best way to do it. Not over some random thing on social media. I think it would just be really cool for Rusev to win the Intercontinental title and then just turn that moment from him to her. And of course Lana would just say yes, yes, yes. And of course, they could have the big wedding during a Monday Night Raw edition and have it like a nice wedding. Don't let it be one of those things where it just ends in complete chaos. It would just not make any sense. So, of course, Rusev and Dolph Ziggler have the rematch in which Rusev wins and keeps the Intercontinental title. So Rusev is back to being a dominant star. And Dolph Ziggler, what's next for him? Hell in the Cell. Now, a lot of people remember that because Dolph Ziggler wasn't even on the card, but now he is. And who is his opponent? The United States Champion, John Cena. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, but what about Del Rio? What about him coming back? I'm sorry. I do not see any reason for Del Rio to come back. I never saw a good reason for Del Rio to be back. It just made absolutely no sense. It left him nowhere. It got him nowhere. It did absolutely nothing. So, instead we're going to have Dolph Ziggler versus John Cena for the United States Championship. And of course, this is where you start picking up the fact that now that John Cena realizes that Dolph Ziggler is doing things selfishly, he is just not doing things the way, the hustle, loyalty, and respect kind of way, or whatever. And Dolph Ziggler is the one who actually beats John Cena for the United States Championship after a vicious super kick, 1, 2, 3. And we can definitely coax into the idea that, again, he can go back to maybe like the whole, steal your girlfriend deal, where he can start making it very personal between John. John's just, of course, saying, I'm not going to let you get under me. Of course, as soon as he mentions the name Nikki, that's where John Cena gets just pushed over the edge. And hopefully this can also coax him into just one more rematch before he goes off to do his show, which was like Gridiron or whatever it was. I forgot what that TV show was. It didn't do any good regardless. So John Cena versus Dolph Ziggler is the rematch set up for Survivor Series, and really, you've done what you could. You've done what you could, and I think that I would have Dolph Ziggler go over again. Let it be one of those things where it's a grave misjustice that, John Cena has lost twice to Dolph Ziggler, and now Dolph Ziggler is still relevant because he's the United States Champion. But in that year, we've accomplished so much. We made Dolph Ziggler a upper mid-card status guy, and we've also given him some great matches, couple of people that he definitely could work with and make into almost $1 million. I mean, obviously